Welcome to the Selectmen's meeting, May 6, 2019. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just a heads up, we actually are flying without a chairman tonight, so if the board wants me to run the meeting, I have no problem with that, or if somebody else would rather run it. Any opinions?
I'm good with you running it.
Ted, you're it. Okay. I expected, yes, we want you to do it, you're the best ever. Okay. That didn't work. Public announcements. I don't think anybody has any public announcements tonight. Nope. 2 weeks from tonight is town meeting. Just want to remind everyone about that. Public announcements, public appointments. 6:45, and I believe the people that are going to speak on this are here.
Yeah,
Yes.
if I could just, I neglected to put public comment on here, so
Yeah, I
you
was
might
looking
want to
for
ask
it.
for that. Yeah, my,
We generally have public comment on the agenda, and it's not here tonight, but if anybody has anything they'd like to talk about that's on the agenda tonight, obviously, when we talk about the Route 18, we will allow people in the audience to talk about that. But if there's somebody who would like to speak on something on the agenda tonight, please come on up to the microphone. If not, seeing none. All right, let's say 6:45, we're going to fly through this meeting tonight. Cable Access Corporation to discuss PEG Access Revolving Fund. I guess the first thing these people can tell us is what PEG stands for. Alex, Lisa Bezanson, I think was going to... Uh-oh, here she comes. Lisa, would you like to come up to the microphone? Oh, yeah, you're on. I believe we asked the Cable Access Corporation to come in because there's an article... do we remember? Oh, Article number 21. It's all right. We get things done here. Article 21 is where we asked you to come in, but I also think you wanted to talk about something else that's happening tomorrow night? Big cable TV related?
Oh, okay. My name is Lisa Bezanson, and I am currently the treasurer of Abington CAM, your community access television that actually broadcasts the Selectmen's meetings. I am way more comfortable behind the scenes than I am talking to a group of people. But I could talk about Abington CAM all day. So I wrote it down, and I'm going to read this to you, but tomorrow night and Wednesday night, we have directors training scheduled at the police station, the community room in the police station. And the first hour and a half tomorrow night will be a PowerPoint presentation by a woman from California that is going to train our director, Sue Buskey. The public is invited for that. Well, they're invited for the whole thing, but the first hour and a half will be the PowerPoint presentation, and we'll have question and answer that's open to the public after that. Then, once the question and answer is over, we will close it to the public, but continue our training. So everybody is welcome to stay. We're just not going to have further public comment because we're paying her a lot of money to come train the board of directors. So we'll be doing that 6:30 tomorrow night. We start, no, 6 o'clock, I'm sorry, 6 to 9, and then 6 to 9 on Wednesday. If anybody would like to come, all are welcome.
The community room at the police station.
Yes.
Perfect.
We encourage community involvement in everything we do. After several conversations with our Abington CAM attorney, I think I have a pretty clear understanding of the warrant article, Article 21, that is coming up for town meeting. And yeah, let me just read you this. Our attorney says that this particular statute, let me see. I'm sorry, I thought I was on a 6:45.
No, that's right. How about if I read what the article says?
Oh, okay, yeah, all right,
So
you can do that, yeah.
People
Yeah,
watching
because
on
I've read
TV,
it, but not everyone has.
It is a little confusing, and
Yep.
it's a lot of abbreviations and stuff like that. Article 21, to see if the town will vote to accept the provisions of General Law, Chapter 44, Sections 53F, 3/4, for the purpose of establishing a separate revenue account to be known as the PEG, PEG Access and Cable Related Special Revenue Fund, into which shall be deposited funds received in connection with the cable television franchise agreements between the town and Comcast Corporation and Verizon Communications, and/or any other cable operator, which funds shall be appropriated only for cable-related purposes consistent with the franchise agreements and in accordance with law, including but not limited to: 1, support of public educational or governmental, PEG, access cable television services; 2, monitoring compliance of the cable operator with the cable licenses; and/or 3, preparing for renewal of the cable licenses, with such action to take effect as of the first day of the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2019, and further to transfer all cable television license proceeds and receipts held by the town for such purposes to such new PEG access and cable-related fund, and further to appropriate from said fund a sum of money to be expended under the direction of the Board of Selectmen for such PEG access services, and further to authorize the Board of Selectmen to enter into a grant agreement for the expenditure of such funds for cable-related purposes in accordance with the law, or take any other action relative thereto. And there's 4 more pages, no, I'm only kidding, that's it. That's by the town manager on behalf of Cam? Well, just-
No.
Okay.
No.
All right, so the town manager put this article in, okay, good.
So,
Just before you go, this was, to meet the needs, the town council wrote that article, so whether it's that vehicle or the vehicle I think Lisa's going to recommend, either one would work. A little
Okay.
bit of different mechanics at town meeting, but they'd both work.
Okay, so you're going to be recommending something a little different. than
we
this.
do have a little bit of a change to that, yeah. In speaking with our attorney, he wrote a whole page for me to read, but the point from what he said that I want to make is that the statute before you this evening for consideration is one that we have carefully reviewed. And while I understand that the State Department of Revenue is the driver here, and that adopting a new approach to how the town handles the financial implication of franchise fee payments is necessary, we at Abington CAM respectfully urge the board to consider an amendment to the wording of Article 21 to change the proposed PEG access and cable-related special revenue fund, as it says now, to a PEG access and cable-related enterprise fund. An enterprise fund will ensure that money collected by Comcast and Verizon will not end up in the general fund. This money is a user fee paid by cable subscribers to fund Abington CAM. It's actually called a franchise fee on everyone's bill. It is not a tax and does not fund a town service. Special revenue funds are set up to handle things like highway grants, school lunch funding, etc., funds that come from state and federal tax money. Cable funds come from ratepayers and should not be put in the general fund unless the town does not have an independent PEG station like Abington CAM. Also, I wanted to say this. I wanted to clear up the misconception that Abington CAM has been mishandling our money. Currently, after many years of mismanagement by a lone former director, Abington CAM has a new board of directors. We have been working hard on proper handling of studio funds, asset management, and community outreach to build Abington CAM into the valuable resource that it can be and should have been since our incorporation in 2009. We've recently reached an agreement with former NHLer, 2-time Stanley Cup winner Kevin Stevens, who will be recording his weekly radio show and podcast at our studio for broadcast in Pittsburgh and Boston. Expanding our program is Abington CAM's mission and is an ongoing process. We are looking for volunteers and program ideas, and we encourage community participation. So with that in mind, we're asking that you amend the wording to an enterprise fund so that, as I said, the money will not be put into the general fund.
Is this something that would have to be amended on the floor at town meeting?
This would be in the form of a motion for town meeting, right?
At town meeting, so
But just so you know,
nothing
yeah, either fund doesn't go into the general fund, neither one of them. It's just, it's a different mechanism. It's a matter of preference, really, but the motion can reflect what Lisa's recommending. The other factor, too, is that enterprise funds are appropriated every year in the budget. Right now, the budget doesn't contain that, so we'll have to make an amendment to the budget motion, too, which, again, is in itself not a problem. So whatever you prefer, we can prepare it either way.
Our Abington CAM attorney is also the city solicitor in the city of Quincy, and he is the president of their Quincy TV. And I've spoken to him. I asked him about both types of funds, and he said enterprise fund is the way to go.
Yeah, any other questions for Lisa? Through Rick, do you believe the town council will not have a problem with an amendment, a friendly amendment like this? You have to
No,
run it by them, or-
by statute, you could use a special revenue fund or an enterprise fund for this purpose. So it's not a legal issue.
Okay. I'm just going to read something really quick, just for the purpose of this article. The article complies with the new requirement for towns to create a mechanism to receive payments from the cable companies that formerly went directly to the CAS, the Cable Access Corporation. So now it's the change in, basically, it's going to be a PEG access. Okay. I have no problem with that. Any other questions? I'll actually open up the floor. Anybody questions for the cable while we're here? No? Okay. We've been voting on the articles as they come along. Does anybody want more time to talk about this article, or do you want to vote on it now or vote on it later in the meeting?
I'm ready to vote on it now.
No, if that's the case.
I mean, if it's going to be amended, though, we don't know what the amendment is actually going to be until town meeting.
Well, yeah, it'll be, the motion will amend the revenue, the special revenue fund citation to an enterprise fund. So if it's the board's desire to support the recommendation, again, we'll prepare for that for town
Right.
meeting if that's what you...
Yeah, the motion would be as amended.
So I'll make a motion that the board approve passing of Article 21 as amended to enterprise fund.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on Article 21 as amended? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, I appreciate
that.
it.
Thank you. Good job over there in Cable Land. Thank you. Next, and I apologize. I should have started the meeting off by welcoming our newest member, Kevin Damasio. Welcome. Well, congratulations. Special thanks to Bob Manning, who was on this board for a while, and the Board of Health. He's not going anywhere. As evidence, he put a sign in my yard for the food drive this coming weekend. So he took one sign down and put another one up. So thank you, Bob, for helping the town out. We appreciate your service. Next on the agenda, it's going to be a little early, but I don't think anybody will have a problem with that unless we're missing some people. But we have asked for a discussion on Route 18 widening project. I'm going to list the guests that are written down here. Anybody that wants to talk, if they could come up to the microphone and just state who they are. But I have Mass DOT District 6 staff, Brian Ackley. I have from DOT headquarters, Chris Evasius, thank you very much. Donnie Daly, that's an easy one. From Gioso and Sons, who was one of the contractors, Tom Akins, Joe Gioso, and Ed Maschella. We have Senator John Keane, I saw, thank you, Senator. We also have State Rep Allison Sullivan, welcome, thank you, and her aide. I also have written down here Regina Villa Associates, who is the outreach staff of Kate Barrett. So that's who I have listed. There's probably more people here. I guess the reason, we just wanted an update, we also wanted to bitch and complain about lack of communication, but that's just me, but I'm sure it's not just me. So maybe you can give us an update. I think we did see on Facebook, I don't know if I actually received an email, but the bridge is going to be worked on this weekend in Weymouth, I think. So who wants to go first?
I'll give you an update.
There you
What
go.
I'm here for, no problem.
All right, thank you.
I'm Chris Evasius, I'm with Mass DOT.
Thank you, Chris.
I'm in the Boston office. Eddie Michelle, raise your hand, Eddie, please. He's the RE. He's on site, and Tom Akins is an area engineer. He's with Mass DOT. So I think Kate's going to tee this up. She's working on it right now. No problem, no problem. So I prepared some slides to go through just to tell you where we are. And if you have any concerns or questions, we'll be glad to answer them.
Thank you.
And I'll just wait for Kate's going to just fire this up.
Would you be able to email these slides?
Yeah, sure, Donnie, you got them, right? Donnie, you can take care of that?
I'll send them along to anyone who wants them. If I can get some, give you a card. So,
I don't know this computer, so.
Yeah, I think you just gotta hit
Now, I believe,
slideshow.
you look familiar, I think you were here before?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. So we were encouraged to sign up to the Route 18 update, and honestly, I may have received one or two updates in the project.
Duly noted.
I will commend you folks. You promised that the 18 and 139 intersection would be one of the first things done, and it was completed, and had a day or so that it was kind of messy, but after that, I think people are fairly happy with the outcome of that, the left-hand turn arrow, so thank you for that.
You're welcome. Just let her get these teed up.
Okay. Now, I saw an interesting picture, is that slide number 2 with, that looked like, no, not this one, but the one that was
Yeah.
just up there. It looked like a house on the water or something.
Oh,
I don't know.
that's the screensaver for the computer.
Oh, the screensaver, I thought that was part of the project, I wanted to in on that one, that was pretty
No,
nice.
that's his wallpaper.
Okay.
yes. You just trying to put full screen?
Yeah, I think you just have to hit slideshow, right? Oh, he's,
Well, we have, this is a
Oh.
loan or something, I don't know whose it is.
If I can help.
It's like an AV nerd in high school, I bet.
oh, we know how that is.
That right there, they're gonna replace the bridge in Weymouth with that? Oh.
There you go. Transponder.
You'll be bouncing off the
Bang,
wall.
you're in Bridgewater. That's it. Just skip all the traffic.
Hovercraft.
All right, Jared, it's all on you.
When the word got out, I was back in town. I've been swamped all weekend, but I got scrapped. I got scrapped.
That means?
Oh, for the cable, is there anything we need to do if I want to switch?
Gets me away from my wife. She's retired now.
I can, if you want, I could just run it back the way it was. I mean, it seems almost big enough. It'll run this way. So it's just not perfect, but we can just do it this way.
that full screen?
Yeah,
Oh, you don't actually need it on here.
No, but we can't.
yeah, but I think we can just run it just like this. I think it's fine.
I think that's fine, too. It's big enough.
There's only a few slides.
Everybody can see it.
I lost number 1, but that's okay. So we're here to do an update on the Route 18 construction. And Donnie did some introductions. We have the contractor here, we have the public outreach specialist and 3 employees of MassDOT, as well as Brian Ackley, who is the designer from Tetra Tech. And I'm going to go through the project status of where we are, what we've done, what to see, what's going to happen in the next year, specific to Abington, but project-wide also. And we'll just talk about some of the mitigation and impacts of traffic and contact information. If there's any questions, we can answer those. We have everyone here that can answer those questions. Now this doesn't work.
Okay.
Do the Bruins play tonight?
You want me to click it for you? I'll be your clicker.
Yeah, well, if you can make it go down, it was going down. Now, oh,
Can we get the Bruins on that?
oh, there we go.
It's high technology.
We're good.
Something.
Excellent. Owner is MassDOT. That's why we're here, Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Contractors, Gioso, DNR, joint venture, and public outreach is done by Regina Villa Associates, Kate Barrett with Gioso. So there's the project. I think we all know the contract area from Route 3, a little bit south of Route 3, all the way down to 139. A lot of the intersections were previously done and have been widened out. So a lot of our work is not only that bridge, but just making those one lane each direction, 2 lanes each direction. Construction began in the late fall of 2017, the last time we were here. And the anticipated completion is still a spring of 2022. There's a lot of ways to go from here to then, but right now we're still looking pretty good. I would imagine if it's like most projects and we have a bad winter, we'll go a little later in 22, but right now we're on task. I'm going to just move ahead a little bit because it's, you might. Okay, there we go. Stage 1, a lot of these stages are already active right now. As you can see, Stage 1 is utility relocations and enabling work for construction. It's on a future slide. There is $11 million worth of utility relocations on this job, so that's a lot of work. it's a big utility job, just to get us going before we even start any work. Stage 2, construction and widening of Route 18. So we can touch about where we are percentage-wise. In Abington, very little widening has happened so far. Stage 3, 2018 all the way to 21, that's the bridge construction and building that temporary bridge and sliding it over. And of course, Stage 5 is going to be the final paving and striping of the entire corridor. Project status. Oh. Okay, good. $11 million in utility relocations is about 40% complete. The beginning of the relocations for the utilities is the electric company. They're the highest on the poles, usually, and that entails moving those poles, which is most of the work. And then once they clear, they go down by utility, and they all move their wires over. 10% of the widening is complete, project-wide. Most of that is up to the south of the bridge. And we have 95% of the walls are complete. 100% of the walls in Abington are complete. So there's a lot of little retaining walls from widening that roadway. All the walls are complete. I guess we must have one little one. It's still in Weymouth, Joe?
Weymouth is very close now.
Yeah, and that's very close. Yeah, that one's good. So the retaining walls are being done. The left turn signal, as you discussed, was implemented. We put that in, and I just put a bullet in that we've been working with the Abington Water. We've done a few things to help out them. They've had some requests. We were able to integrate that into the project, and certainly with the chief, we try to do what we can do to be a good neighbor with the fire department. 2019 look ahead. The relocation of the electric is going to continue all throughout the project corridor. Once they clear, Comcast Verizon gets in there and start moving their lines out of the way. Water pipe work is nearly complete in Abington. Drainage pipe work is 50% complete, ongoing in Abington in 2019. So we're going to be doing utilities on Route 18 through 2019, getting everything out of the way, putting it in the new alignment. We expect roadway widening to start in earnest in 2020. Sounds like a long time away, but next construction season, after all that drainage is out of the way, then we can start the widening, and that follows those utilities. That's really where we need to be. We need to follow those utilities. Partial demolition of the existing Route 18 bridge over MBTA will be sometime in this summer, maybe mid-June, maybe mid-July. We're figuring out right now what date that's going to be. We have to coordinate that with the MBTA. We're going to move everyone to the left very soon, and we're going to take a sliver out of that bridge that's there now, and we're going to put up a temporary beam to hold up that side, which will allow us to have the room to build the temporary bridge on the right side. And I know that it's still part of the project, so we want to touch on everything while we're here. But that is, that's going to entail the Pond Street detour. We have not put a date on it, and when we do, there's going to be a massive amount of public outreach when that happens. So we do not have a date. We need to get all of our technical work completed, then we need to work with the MBTA and certainly Weymouth and Abington when that detour is going to happen. It will not happen around Independence Holiday, anywhere near there. So it's if anything, it's mid-June. It's probably mid-July, but we're working with the contractor right now. We'll pin a date down, and we'll get that process going out there. And so that's good.
Pointed at the computer?
Yeah. It's okay.
As far as the MBTA, is that going to have an effect on the transfer road, or?
For this season, what we are proposing, and we need this to be approved by the MBTA, so we're already working together, is the contractor is going to put in the vehicle detour and do this part of the selective demolition and removing a beam under what we call foul time, and it won't be, trains will not be out of service.
Okay.
So it's a little bit different than was thought about when the design came out, but the contractor has asked to use that diversion of the commuter rail to demolish the old bridge and not do it 3 hours every night next to that neighborhood, and do it over one weekend in August, and that'll come up. and knock the whole thing right out of there. So we support that. As long as we can technically do it and our friends at the T agree, we're good. So right now where we are, I spoke with a gentleman from the T today, and we're going to get him our submittals, and he's going to look at it. And we think we can do it what we call foul time, and which is in the middle of the night, and not disrupt the trains. So that's our plan. And we still need to get it approved through everybody, but that's the way we're looking for that. If I push it much harder, I'm going to break that thing in half. Well, I know the rest of it pretty much. That was the most important part. So I can wing the rest of it, if you like. So that next slide was how we're going to take a sliver off that bridge and hold it up and move on. And the rest of the presentation was effectively, we have a list. We'll answer questions. Seems like there's a little bit of more communication you folks would like, so we'll have to work on that, get those updates to you. One thing to remember, obviously 2 updates in 16 months is not good enough, but a lot of our work doesn't change here. We're just out there, we're working. But we can work on that in getting a better update to you. That's okay. We're good pretty much. And so that's where we are the next year. And the railroad diversions, that's one of the big questions. And we need to get this approved through the MBTA, but right now we're looking at the railroad diversions of the commuter rail being in 2020, around August, in 2021, where the bridge slide would happen. That's where we see it right now, and that is definitely subject to change due to the contractor's operations, any differing site conditions that we encounter, as well as the public agencies and everyone else. So, but that's where we are right now, and it's a couple of years is a long time away in construction, but that's what we're planning for right now. And with that, if you have any questions,
I'm actually going
concerns?
to ask the chief. He's in the front row. I just want to, I don't know if he has any concerns, if his communication is any better than what we've been going through. If you could, chief.
Thank you. I have no slides, so you don't have to worry about that. We've had better communication. We had an issue, an acute issue that occurred about a month and a half ago, whereby when you had the Jersey barriers close to Route 139, you were building one of the walls. It caused a massive and solid traffic jam directly in front of the station. I reached out to both Josio and the state, and they painted some numerous lines in the street, and we've added more do not block driveway signs to the fire station. I'll be honest with you, it's not working. It depends on the day. It depends on whether it's a courteous driver, which there are a few. We're doing the best we can. We are able usually to get the large trucks out. However, the issue is, as you know, we're a small department that when it gets busy, we rely heavily on the off-duty help. Trying to get personal vehicles to cut through we're not really getting the same respect as the large trucks going out when we're trying to get back in to man the station. This is not a simple fix. I'm going to continue to work with the state, and they have been working with us, Mass DOT, on this. I don't know what the simple fix is. We can't really put a detailed police officer out there 24 hours a day, although as the construction really ramps up, we will obviously need to do something like that. But the communication is getting better. The other issue we had, or potential issue, is when you're working within the close proximity of my fire station, or our fire station on Route 18, that will physically hamper the apparatus coming or going. In other words, if they're trenching in front of the station, we simply can't drive over it. Or once they get to the point when you're going to be asphalting, as you know, we can't drive over that. So we're going to have to temporarily relocate the apparatus, probably to Station 2 or North School, depending on the time, on a per diem basis. This is only during the working hours. At night, we need to go back to the living quarters. Correct. The communication's imperative. I did request from them, if they're doing any work, major work within 200 feet on either direction, either side of the fire station, to let me know. Over the winter, we were looking at a short time where we're going to have to move the apparatus out. I vocally put a note of that because I was afraid of freezing the apparatus in the cold weather. They understood that, and I think they kind of pushed that off to warmer weather.
Contractor stopped.
Okay.
Don't work near the fire department, that's what we did. Yep.
So we're just waiting to hear from that again. Once we know, and we know that ahead of time, we'll work around that. We've done that in the past when they did major sewer work and other construction on Route 18. This is obviously larger. So, we're doing weekend in the short term. Long term, again, as you know, I have concerns over the location of the station. I'm not getting into that now, but this is why. I think we're seeing the early, and really the serious implications of that, so.
Good. Thank you, Chief. Does the board have any questions or concerns they want to raise with anyone here?
I just want to second the email program that you had was exciting when we first heard about it, and it's been a disappointment since, so.
Okay, we'll fix that.
I know I'm repeating what other people said, but it's that important because they're coming to us looking for, why are we not getting updated, so we're coming to you, so.
Is there a plan moving forward as far as emails? Is there something you guys are proposing to do, more emails or anything?
Yes, it's the first I heard that there weren't enough emails going out, so that we had time to formulate a plan. But the simple answer is, yeah, we need to put more out, and if that means that one has to go out on Friday, Joe, for the next week, I think that's what we should do. Donnie, with that?
Yeah, very.
Yeah, so we can have one go out. There may be some repetition, but we'll do it.
Yeah,
Is there something where?
If the town can post it on its website, and, maybe get a local paper saying that every Friday, by noon on Friday, it'll be there on the website. I mean, we can certainly do that with many projects.
Yeah, even if there's any sort of update like that, weekly or bi-weekly, that even if it could pass on the town could put it out, that'd be great.
Well, I would respectfully suggest, let's figure out it right now. Do you want a weekly or bi-weekly? What are you most comfortable with?
Weekly wouldn't hurt.
Okay, good. So,
Chris, weekly is needed, right? I mean,
weekly.
Yeah.
We work all year.
Is there,
Can we request that it sends to the state rep and the senator?
Yeah, that's automatically, we just,
Okay.
yeah, you'll be on that.
is there any, like, rhyme or reason to the areas where you're working? It seems like you guys are bouncing all around. Is there anything to that? Or?
I would say that we generally follow the utility relocations. Joe, I don't know if you want to touch on that, but it's all about, when it comes to the roadway work, it's all about getting the poles out of the way.
Okay.
So it may not look like there's rhyme or reason, but wherever somebody's cleared us and moved those poles, we can go do the widening. Certainly, in the outlying areas where they're doing the sedimentation basins and the drainage, which I believe is mostly done, that's when it's open, they do it. There's a couple that we're waiting to get in there and get access. But it's mostly driven by the utilities, and it may look like we're jumping around. There's 6, Eddie, utility areas, or is it 11? Joe, you know, how many utility areas?
8.
8, okay, all right, between 6 and 11. Yeah, there's 8 areas where the utility companies have made commitments to certain durations to move those poles and those lines, and those come as a waterfall, and they move, they work along them, and so we follow them. So that's why it may look like we jump around a little bit.
Is there
This
something?
job can't go north to south, because the way their utilities are set up, their utilities just don't go from south to north. They come from different places, and they have to serve different customers.
Is there something, how fast of a turnaround? So you move the utilities, you guys going right out, or is there like a week? Is there anything where we could get an update maybe on where they're gonna be working on utilities, or where you guys are gonna be moving to next, or kind of like a punch list? It might be these areas.
There's an awful lot of information, but I think if we give you a good weekly update, I think in that weekly update, we should have, hey, we're gonna start in Abington next month. That can be part of it. Does that sound fair? Or, we're gonna be moving, we haven't worked here yet, we're looking at going there. We can't do it in real time where we're gonna go, but I think if we give you a good weekly, that will give you what you want.
Yeah, not just Abington, like the area.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. We'll try it, and if you want something else, we can work with you.
I have not heard too many complaints from area businesses. I don't know if you folks have had a lot of complaints, which is amazing considering the amount of work that's been done, so.
We've had a few, but not as many as we expected, going into construction.
I know Main Street Bar and Grill's been vocal, not that
Yeah.
they're in Abington, but,
Right.
so there is some.
The majority of the concerns that reach MassDOT, and I understand that not everything might reach us, although it should, is our specific homeowners with specific questions. Hey, what are you doing with my mailbox or whatever? And we tell them. I don't. There's not a lot of complaints that we're getting. There's concerns, and hey, the road's kind of rough in front of my house, and it's rocking my house a little bit, and that's when was that Abington, Tom? Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna make sure that we get that repaved a little bit in one area, the lateral trench, but we're not being inundated by the complaints in any way, shape, or form.
Any other questions or comments from the board? I'll open up to the audience. If anybody, audience members have any questions they'd like to ask, I'm welcome to come up to the microphone. If not, I'd like to give the opportunity now for our state rep and our state senator, if they want to say a couple words, they can, or just introduce themselves. We thank you for coming. We truly appreciate it.
Turn the lights on.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Thanks for having us here tonight. DOT, thank you, Chief. It's always great to see you. I think you hit on the issue that how important communication is, and I would urge anybody that is concerned about a project or has a complaint about the project, if they contact you, to pass that on to us, and we'll make sure that we get that through to Mr. Daly, who we are in regular contact with on a lot of different projects, or to send it directly to my office. And my email is john.keenan@masenate.gov, or to give the office a call at 617-722-1494. And whatever we get, we pass on to Mass DOT and make sure that there's a response, and we do follow up. And I have to say that on this project so far, we haven't gotten a whole lot of complaints from people. But that's not to say that there aren't issues that pop up daily that are being handled and we are unaware of. A lot of the bigger work is forthcoming, and so we expect that there'll be an increase in the volume of concerns expressed by people, and again, we're happy to accept those, work with the constituents on those, work with DOT, and work with you folks as well to make sure that they are addressed in a timely manner as possible. But I want to thank you for having us tonight. I think this is great because it gets the word back out there to people that the project is ongoing, gives them a sense of where it's at, and gives them a sense of what's happening next. So thank you.
Thank you. Just to echo Senator Keenan, communication is important. My office is in room 39 at the State House. The phone number is 617-722-2014. And then my email is allison.sullivan@mahouse.gov. And we'd be happy to answer any questions, or if there's any questions from the board going forward, we'd be able to reach out to MassDOT as well. And pretty much all of you have my cell phone number, so you know how to get in contact with me. But thank you for having us tonight.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. I'll just take like a 2-minute break, so before we have a mass exit, and then we'll get right into our agenda, if that's all right.
2 minutes.
2 minutes. All right, we're going to call the meeting back to order. Thank you all. Action discussion items, approval of April 22nd, 2019 open session minutes. Obviously, Kevin was not present at this one. Tim Chapin was a little late for that one. So we have, do we take a roll in?
Oh, I wasn't here either.
Yeah, I'm not sure
We
we're
can
gonna
take
be able
a rule of necessity, or we can just hold on to those if we want, because I think there's just,
I was absent also.
all right, why don't we hold those then, if that's agreeable to the board, till the next meeting when we have a full board?
Yeah.
All right, that's
good.
fine. And there is, just a note that there is a mistake on Article 23. I abstained from that vote, if you want to just correct that, make that correction.
Article 23A.
Article 23, I abstained after I spoke against it. I abstained. All right. Discussion. We've been putting this off long enough. Disposition of north and center surplus school buildings. We were given by the town meeting, I think, last year, the right to come to a decision. They were declared surplus. The school department does not need them. There's been several committees. The last committee, and I could have sworn the members were listed on here, and I'm going to apologize. Oh, they're right here in the front. We have a committee, a surplus school building committee, whose job was just to try to give us a recommendation on these two buildings, Jared Driscoll, Wendy Happel, Pamela Howe, Paul Joyce, and Robert Manning Jr. They gave us a pretty detailed summary and overview. I hope, and I asked that to be sent out to all the members, so we had it again. They gave us pros and cons of different options. To be quite honest with you, they didn't really give us a definitive, unless someone disagrees with you, they didn't really exactly tell us what their thoughts were. Yes, Jared? Come on up to the microphone, please, I'm sorry. And I was going to open the floor to you and Pam and anybody else that's on the committee if they wanted to talk. Absolutely, we appreciate your input.
We came up with a lot of ideas on what we could do with the North and Center School, but there were two things that we unanimously agreed on. One was to split the property at the center school to maintain the park and rec for Murphy Field. And the second thing was to get rid of the buildings because they had various public safety and utility hazards. And if you drive by the North School, you can see it. It's kind of falling down. Those are our two things that we all unanimously agreed on. We also presented some ideas on how to fund certain demolition of one of the buildings, what they could be used for, but we left it up to you guys to decide what ultimately you want to do with the buildings.
Okay.
But our main focus was we need to get these buildings down due to the public safety hazard and to maintain our park and rec for center school.
All right, and it was not really, other than those two, there was no really consensus on the board about, no one said, we need to do this, and everybody's like, yes, we do. It was kind of a...
Yeah, I mean, everyone has their own ideas
Sure.
of what they want to do with surplus land, and that's not really, we didn't really feel like that's what we were challenged to do, was to give you guys an ultimate idea, but to present you with some ideas and for you guys to ultimately vote on what you thought
There's
was
definitely some
appropriate.
well-thought-out ideas. Pam, did you want to speak at all, or you want to wait? Or-
I mean, I assume that's ultimately what we decided was, those were the two things.
Yeah,
Sure,
the most
absolutely.
important, Pam Howe, 149 Walnut Street, the most important things were to get the school buildings down. Everybody seemed to agree that they just didn't seem like it was going to be cost-effective to try to make them into anything else. I mean, maybe we did have some scenarios where the buildings might be able to be used, but as a committee, we said, you know, it's costing money to keep them up, and the best thing would be to take the buildings down and then have open space and decide, you know, what we wanted to use that space for. We went to all the different, sent out notices to all the different departments in town. The fire department was interested in North School, and it seemed like our ultimate agreement, majority of the group was to leave Center School or try to do like an open space type thing at Center School, until maybe in the future if something else, you know, if the town wanted to do something else with that property.
Okay.
But that was the basic recommendation.
Excellent, thank you.
And the other package, there were just a lot of scenarios, there were like 4 or
Yes.
5 different
Yep.
scenarios, because, again, everybody has different ideas of what to do, but then the ultimate decision was take both buildings down, you know, and just have the open space, and then decide as a town what, you know,
Okay,
to do in the future.
thank you. Does anybody have questions for these two folks that are on the committee before we start to discuss it amongst ourselves? No? Okay, I will let you folks know that the Board of Selectmen sponsored an article to split the property, as you suggested, just so, you know, there is the option there that the Board of Selectmen would have the right to, you know, the park would be one, is it Murphy Field? Is that what it's called? Murphy Field. But there's also the option where that, you know, if the board was to decide to put it out to bid and someone wanted both portions, that would be an option too, but we wanted to at least have it ready so that we could split it if we needed to, so. That. Right, exactly. Does anybody want to, I don't know how you want to handle this, does anybody have options, does anybody have questions? I have thoughts, actually, let me let the police, fire chief come up, only because he gave an excellent presentation, and from day one, even before this committee was formed, the fire department was looking into the idea of using that property. And I got to tell you, after seeing your presentation, there is no doubt that we need a new fire station. Chief, would you want to come up, please?
Yeah, stop running into the...
Not prepared for this, but I'm good at talking off the cuff. Prior to that, before I get into that, just a quick update on the two buildings themselves, which the committee may or may not know, but it's kind of not really their place, I think, to have to worry about it. But both of these buildings, North and Center School, have been damaged. The winter was not very gentle with them because of the cold. Both of the sprinkler systems have been damaged from freeze. I was talking to the town manager on that over the weekend, over the winter when this occurred, and the cost benefit to repairing those sprinkler systems really isn't there. The reason these froze is we're trying to be working with the town manager and with Wayne Norling, who's kind of become the caretaker of these buildings. We're trying to be financially responsible by not heating the entire building simply for the sake of the sprinkler system. They're older, dry sprinkler systems, so we had narrowed down just a portion of the boiler rooms to heat that at the main sprinkler valve prior to where there's still water in it. Above that is compressed air. The problem is it's an old system and there are low-hanging points throughout both buildings that they did freeze and there was some damage. And even if, and we did get a fairly expensive estimate to have both of these buildings repaired. To be perfectly honest with you, after seeing the damage that we saw, I'm not convinced that would have been enough to really replace that sprinkler system or have confidence in it. So the buildings are, right now, there's damage in it. There was water flow at the North School that resulted from that. We were able to stop the flow of water before it occurred at the Center School when we checked that. There is still electricity going to the buildings because I'm not opposed to cutting the power to the building. However, they both have sump pumps down in the basement that are both running constantly. They're old, low buildings, physically low on the ground. And when we did have a power outage, the water was beginning to flood the boiler rooms, which causes other issues that we don't really want to, whether there are any oil in the buildings or anything, we don't want to get into that. So we are still maintaining the power to the buildings on that. I agree with the committee. I think the buildings have to come down, or something has to be done to them. It's not going to go away. There's two large, expensive white elephants in town that I think the town tried very hard to not spend too much money in, because to heat these two buildings was very expensive per month just to maintain a sprinkler system. And I agree that really wasn't really ideal. So I think the town's been trying to do the best they can with this, and it's just, at some point, I think the buildings have gone beyond their use. As for the fire station with North School, in my opinion, I think it's a great location. However, as you know, there is an article on the upcoming town meeting to request an independent audit of that. Don't just take the fire chief's opinion on that. I would welcome an independent, objective view of that. There may be other land I'm not aware of. I don't know what the cost would be with that. To me, it's a no-brainer. I think the North School is an ideal location, but we need to have a study done anyway on our two existing fire stations and see what needs we're gonna have to address moving forward one way or the other. So I would like the land at North School. The building itself, I don't believe is salvageable.
Okay, thank you. There's been some vandalism at the North School, too?
Center School. Center School, I
okay.
believe, there was some minor vandalism in there.
Okay.
So it's becoming an attractive nuisance.
Absolutely, okay. Questions for the chief?
Again, that's a
while he's up here?
liability hazard for the town.
Yep.
So.
Oh, absolutely. I just want a little background history. I've been pushing for our board to make a decision on this for quite a while now. And I can only look back to the Griffin's Dairy Committee. I was in the original Griffin's Dairy Committee, and we came up with recommendations, and the Board of Selectmen at the time just dragged their feet. I don't know if they were afraid to make a decision, didn't want to make a decision. One of our goals in the beginning was to keep the barn. It was a beautiful barn, post and beam, and that was vandalized, and it ended up being fire, several years in, and there was a fire in a large building that we probably weren't going to keep anyways, but the barn was very worth keeping, and it was a beautiful old barn, and that just points that if this stuff sits here any longer, I personally don't think it's a good idea, and it's actually kind of dangerous. So, feelings, thoughts, recommendations, motions.
They have to come down though, right? You want to start that?
They don't have to. That's the board's decision. Let me just. I'll get the ball rolling. I think the North School should come down, and for a future site, if the survey comes through, I think it's a perfect location. The chief told us the reasons why. I think it's a perfect location. It's off of 18. I think it's a perfect location for a fire station. The downside to doing this and keeping both properties is that for the longest time we talked about, oh, we can sell this and make some money, make this money. And people are going to be like, there you go, you're doing it again. You're not making the money. You're raising our taxes and not giving us any relief. I just think that if we're kicking the can a little further down the road, but if a new fire station was to go there, that opens up two pieces of property again that could be sold, for revenue. Those are both, one of them, the prime location on 18. But that's just, putting the kettle before the horse, or whatever you call it, the cart before the horse. So my thoughts are, I would be in favor of tearing down the North School right away. And I have a soft spot for, not for the school, because I never went to the center school, but I really, really think the town of Abington needs affordable senior housing, more than any other housing. They don't need one-bedroom apartments, they don't need any more condos, but we need a place for our seniors, and it's not happening. I would like to somehow light a fire under the town and use CPA funds. I have lots of articles with different towns that have done it, front page, recipe for more affordable housing. I think this is in Norwell. Use CPA funds, you leverage it, you can borrow against it, and my thoughts are, maybe before we jump into tearing down the center school, maybe just look to see if someone might be interested in, I know it probably have to be gutted, there's asbestos, maybe it's not worthwhile. I know, I saw the pictures of the North School, I know that's unsavable, but, you look in Whitman Center, there's an old school there, it's condos now, but we need a place for our seniors. And we have CPA money dedicated, we can dedicate more, we can borrow against it. I'd love to see a public-private partnership where a builder comes in, we offer them that, and just work together with our CPA funds. So that's, I guess my thoughts are, North School gone, I went to school there, but it's gone. Tear it down, it's a liability, and then maybe investigate the center school. But if somebody comes up and says the center school is not worthwhile, you can't save it, definitely, then I would tear that down too.
Is there a study that we could get, that somebody could look at the center school and let us know?
If the board was to decide that, that'd be fine, but I would say sooner rather than later. You don't want to go through another winter up there, especially if the sprinkler system is down. I mean, I would just take someone to come in, maybe a couple engineers to say, even builders and developers to come in and say, you know what, the frame's still here, the skeleton's still here, we've got to tear the walls out anyways, and maybe we can do it. But obviously not a builder, but we need more affordable senior housing in town. Just talk about a senior housing project, but in reality, that's not affordable.
Do you want to take action on the North School before this study is done? Or you want to wait till the study comes in?
Personally, I think that building has to come down. The problem is the cost. Now, we have no funding mechanism. Do you have any solution to that at all? Or?
That would be a town meeting, and we'd have to be amortizing that either, within or outside the levy limit.
Right, it's too late for this town meeting, so it would have to sit,
Right.
Should be ready for it to the next one, though.
So do any members of the board have any other feelings? You heard mine.
I think they both need to come down, but I wouldn't be opposed to having a study done for the center school if people think that's eligible.
I mean,
Like you, I'm not a builder, I don't know it's not.
It would be nice if a developer could come in and say, you know what, we can still use the bones of this building, and then we don't have to pay to have it demolished. You know?
How do we advertise that?
Yeah, I mean, is the cost to tear it down and build new, you know, there's many
Right,
questions there. so
right, the developer might come in and say, you know,
It's junk.
It might be cheaper to knock it down
Right,
and build new,
exactly.
and you could, you know, maybe,
I mean, it's not like it's a 1800s building that's really, you know, historic and that sort of stuff. Well, it's a little historic, but it's older than I am, but.
And anything that happens there, obviously, there's to be a procurement process, so.
Oh, absolutely.
We can get somebody in to look at it. It almost sounds like you're looking for somebody to come in, you know, at their own time and expense, just to give some input, some insight.
with the safety of the schools, though, I mean, I kind of agree that they probably both need to come down. I mean, we have people breaking in these schools. I mean, the safety risk alone. I drove through there today, and there was, you know, kids playing in the basketball and people walking up there, so,
Yeah.
It's a center school.
yeah, at the
Yeah, I
center
drove
school,
through there
yeah, that's- I
yesterday
mean,
too
that's
myself,
safety,
yeah.
Yeah. We're gonna continue with the cost on them to keep them heated and, you know, for sump pump.
Yep.
North School, wasn't it damage to one wall or something? How imminent is that collapsing?
Not an engineer or an architect, but.
Did you send your men in there?
The front facade, side A of the building, you'll know that, the main entrance of the original main entrance, right above that, we call that side A. The facade up there appears to be taken down. I'm not an engineer, I'm not an architect, we're just going by what, I wouldn't have anybody working up there.
Are both those buildings posted?
Neither of those buildings posted.
Do
We're
they-
not, structurally, I don't feel that there's an immediate danger that way. This is just, you know, we're
Okay.
just looking at, as the building ages, it's
Gonna get worse.
Are we talking firefighter lingo here? What does posted mean
Thank you.
for us civilians? What it was,
Stay out of the
Posted meaning
building.
is there a large red X on the building, which for firefighters, regardless of whether it's Abington or mutual aid firefighters coming in, it's a do not enter sign or enter with caution. I don't feel the buildings are that dangerous yet. Structurally, I don't believe there's imminent collapse. However, as the building is aging, in the winters are the time that you get the most damage. I should probably, might not work. The water freezes and expands, and that's when the brick could eventually begin to come down.
Is side A the Route 58 side? I'm sorry, what was that?
Can they hear him when he's talking from his seat? So either talk louder or
Or is
stand at the
that-
microphone.
Is that A, B, or is that B or D?
Side A is the original entrance walking into the building where the playground used to be facing the First Baptist Church.
Okay. Just wondering, how close is that road?
Go A, B, C, D going in clockwise.
Letters on the building.
Is it?
Yeah. you can see the-
Just wondering if that facade is falling, do we run the risk on the Route 58 side of that falling and going into the road, or, you know, that's a safety?
I'm assuming the entire surrounding cornice of that building is probably
Sidewalks,
similar.
I mean, yeah.
So, I don't think the building's going to collapse. I don't mean that, this would be something falling straight down.
I just want to remind the board that at one point we talked about, there was talk about, oh, we can recoup a lot of our money, and now it's actually going to end up, if we vote to tear them down, it's going to cost us money. They're not going to be, I mean, at some point further down the road, if the town decides to sell them, we can make money, but, I mean, I don't even think you can recoup the cost.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's gonna be more valuable empty than it is with, oh, here's the building that you have to tear down.
Right, there are some estimates in here about, and again, I'm not construction or a demolition person, but there's cost estimated at $500,000 to $1 million to demolish the buildings, I think. I don't know.
That has to do with the asbestos.
Oh, that's right, there's asbestos, okay. So, that's why, you know, maybe one of the buildings we can ask the developer to take care of the demolition, but.
That was one of our things we discussed.
By the time we sold it and had a developer in here ready to do it, maybe 2 years,
Yep.
2 more winters. I would like to start the process to tear down the North School,
Yeah, I agree with that.
at least right away. center school too. But if you wanted, like I said, if you wanted to do a study. you could
But we
swing
can't,
on that.
we can't tear it down unless it's an eminent emergency without funding, correct?
That is correct. You need funding, no doubt.
Funding.
Yeah.
And the funding, unless we have a special fall town meeting, which we haven't had in
Long time.
eons. It's gonna have to wait.
Certainly
till-
have one, I know, it's,
Yeah, we have
we've
to wait till
been
next
fortunate
spring.
not to have one, that's all.
Yeah.
But I mean, if we had one in the fall, could we get it done before the winter?
We got a study, when would the study be?
I don't know, I mean, by the time we go through a building, procurement process for demolition of the building, it could, I mean, first of all, we need to have some reasonable cost estimates of what it would take. And I think we'd have to hire some professional to tell us that. So I think that would probably be the first step. And then usually you follow that up with an RFP for demolition. But obviously that takes time, so I think what you would probably be looking at in the fall would be funding for engineering or architectural services to give us cost estimates that we could then go into, next year's town meeting with, to ask for the full appropriation, whether it's through a bond issue or a debt exclusion. I don't see how you can do it with just one vote. I think you need two steps to accomplish it.
If you don't mind, just part of the fire department operational study may include a cost estimate for at least removing North School. I'm sure whomever we may work with, they may be able to look at the other building. They're almost twin buildings. You may be able to get a cost from
Perhaps,
that,
yeah.
assuming that passes town meeting.
That's your Article 10 you're talking about?
Yes.
That's a great idea, actually, if we could
Yeah, well, I know
roll that into the,
when we discussed it with, was KBA Architects, who they've done projects all over the country, as well as Massachusetts. The cost estimate was between $75,000 and $100,000. Well, it was more closer to $75,000, but the reason why they recommended and we agreed that we would seek $100,000 is because every community has its own nuances, and to the extent that you want to add, essentially menu options on top of the base rate, we didn't want to be short of funds to do that. So it may very well be that there's an opportunity there. So
and we're expecting an extra 30 from the state.
if
If the budget
comes
does.
through, yes, we hope to see that, yes. So that's a good idea,
faith.
Chief. Hope maybe that can work out.
It sounds to me like there's a consensus to tear down the North School.
Yes.
Yes. Start the ball,
I guess we could just make a motion to start the ball rolling to demolish the, whatever it takes, if it takes a special town meeting or...
Do we know if there's any cost savings to demolishing both at once rather than one, and then you're gonna save any money with the same company doing both rather than one?
You have to be separate bids, right?
I don't think they have to be separate bids, no. It's because it's so much money anyway. It's not like you're, bid splitting to get under a particular procurement threshold. Whether it's more cost-effective, I guess, I don't know. I don't know that. May very well be that it may be too much for one company to do, and within some period of time, it's well beyond my area of expertise. It could also be a situation where you put out two separate, two bids, two separate bids, and see how they come back. You could go for one option where it's two buildings demolished, or go with, or you have two, like an ad-alt type of a situation.
With the fact that the center school is going to have to go through at least one more winter, I would probably change my vote to be in favor of tearing it down too, unfortunately. But, so, I mean, I would guess it seems, again, that's the consensus of the board. I'm going to open it up to the audience if they have any comments or questions in a second, but consensus of the board, and we're going to vote on this, is to demolish both the schools, start the ball rolling to demolish both the schools. No matter what it takes, you can come back to us and tell us, you need a study, here's an estimate for a study, and if there's if there is a flavor, or whatever you want to call it, for its fall town meeting, we'll push it forward. If not, it's going to have to be next spring. But at least we made a decision, you know, moving forward, and then that'll buy you some more time to decide, you know, to see what the results of the fire station study are, and maybe, you know, float some balloons about, you know, maybe senior housing, work with the council, the CPA and the CPA and the Housing Authority to see if there is a, I honestly think there are apartments, I know there's a residential, and one of the members of the board lives up there, but, of the committee, I should say, but there are apartment buildings up there, but I personally feel that the town has enough apartments, but not enough senior housing, affordable senior housing, so I think it'd be a perfect location. Yeah, yep, absolutely, yep, I was gonna open it up to the floor, so.
That's 0-0, they took that goal back.
Shout out, I live at 129 Priscilla Alden Road in Abington.
Sure.
My question is you have the two schools, they still have to be maintained, right? Somebody has to go in with the water for the winter and stuff. Is there any cost to that? I mean, what are we paying to keep these schools not even doing anything? They don't just sit there. I mean, I'm sure it costs us something.
The town manager, the chief, can answer this a little better, but I don't think there's much maintenance going on. That's part of the problem.
No, there isn't, and you know, the chief and Wayne have worked to, you know, to try to get to the point where we don't have to heat the whole buildings. So that was, initially, that was a big expense. So it's not a big expense right now, but it's a liability more so than an expense at the
Right, if the
moment.
pipes freeze or something. I mean, just, that's what I'm thinking, more winter than summer. I mean,
Yeah.
they'll have more.
Yeah, it's,
Okay, all right.
it's all been drained. No,
Thank you.
please.
I'm trying to take over this meeting, I promise. Sir, the domestic water has been shut off and drained. The heating water through the heating system in both buildings has been shut off and drained, as well as there was a third loop that was shut off and drained as well. The sprinkler, but that occurred damage because there were low areas in it. Originally, I think that was a wet system, then it was converted to a dry system in the 60s. That's kind of what happened with that. So for the most part, everything really, the buildings have been mothballed as much as they can. There's minimal electrical use in there, mainly for a sump pump at both locations, if that helps.
There's been some talk about a youth center. Obviously, the schools are in disrepair. I just want to make people aware that there is plenty of room in the folio for youth activities, and the gym is still there, so, and I know there's rooms, and they use rooms up on the second floor, I think, for different youth activities, so, I mean, we have options there for youth, you know, for a youth center if we needed one.
Yeah.
The demolishing them, would we be backfilling a hole basically there? Do you know what the end result is? They both have basements on them, do they? Crawl space, okay. So it's not like we're gonna be leaving a hole in the ground theoretically.
No, whoever demolished them would have to take care of it, you know.
Now, do we still need any access to them after that, like the vacant property? What would be the, cutting the grass, we wouldn't have to be clearing those lots out plowing or anything. We'd need no access up there theoretically, right?
And unless they wanted,
Department
they might need the North School parking lot for, you know, parking the, you know,
We really haven't been much with it.
Okay,
but with Route 18 construction, they may need,
so I'm
you know,
wondering, are we still
access up
gonna
there.
have to maintain the?
Yeah. Does anybody else in the audience want to make any comments or suggestions, or, you know, or?
The committee did talk about senior housing up at Center School and North School. We all kind of agreed that the town does need senior housing, but we did put the request out to, like, the Council on Aging. There wasn't any interest from them in expanding the senior housing to either one of the schools, and I think it was just because the town would have to maintain that. So they were looking at it as, you know, that's, if you're gonna put more housing there, you know, town senior housing, it's gonna have to be maintained by the town. So that was, I think, a concern.
I believe the Housing Authority would, a lot of these people would do this in other towns, and Norwell's not the only one that did it, but Hanover, but they turn it over to the Housing Authority. Now, the Housing Authority itself is unable to do anything lately. They own property right behind us, right here, but they're unable because there's no funding from, and Housing Authority is a federal, and there's no funding from the federal. However, if the town were to step up to the plate with the CPA funds, which you have to spend at least 10% of it every year, you can spend up to 80% for housing, affordable housing. So if the town would, work to, and end up giving it to the Housing Authority to manage, that's a possibility.
Yeah, it might be, but we didn't really have,
Right.
you know,
No,
a lot of
absolutely.
the information. We just put it out there, and
Right.
then that was the reply. And then you worry about if you sell it to a developer, or, you know, are they going to put in, you know, how many units of senior housing, or...
Well, that would be
Are they gonna-
part of how you design an RFP. You'd be requiring certain,
Right.
you'd have certain requirements of whomever would bid on it, so.
Right, so...
But
that was-
defining that is the question. Who's going to define that? And
Right, so that's why we, like I said, our best scenario was, you know, take the buildings down, and then you can decide going forward the best usages, you know, to benefit the
And
town.
this is nothing that has to be decided tonight as far as the affordable senior housing, but there are a lot of options. Newton did it where they had 55 permanently affordable one-bedroom rented units for residents at least 62 years old, and they were restricted by income, 11 units for households with up to 30% of the area median income, 21 for households with up to 60%, and 23 for up to 99%. So different, and they use other funding methods. There's other options for funds. They use quite an array of different money, including CPA funds and low-income housing tax credits, which I think the project off of Plymouth Street is going to use, Affordable Housing Trust Fund, Mass Housing Stabilization Fund, all different funding options. So I just wanted to throw that out there to say, you know, to really push what I've been trying to push for the last couple of years, more affordable senior housing. But anyways, back to the issue at hand. I don't think anybody else from the audience wants to say anything, but does the board want to get the ball rolling on demolishing both the buildings?
Yes.
Okay, we'll make a motion and see if it's acceptable to the wording, it's acceptable, maybe Rick can help us out on this, but, throw something out there, I mean, guys.
Basically, what we're doing right now would be directing you to find the next steps for demolition of that. So,
Yes.
a motion to direct the town manager's office to start the process of looking into demolishing North School and Center School.
Okay. All right, we have a motion? Second. We have a second, any further discussion on that? None, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that's a unanimous vote. Do we want to act any further on any of that stuff? Do we want to make recommendations as to once they're demolished? Do we want to just kind of leave it at that for now?
Just give it down, I guess.
I think that's probably a pretty good idea, to see what the findings of the fire station study come up with, and then maybe we can investigate, reach out to the Community Preservation Committee, see if there's any interest in them, you know. All right? You're good? Okay. Thank you, and I want to thank the Surplus School Building Committee for stepping up to the plate and volunteering. I also want to thank the fire chief for coming in. I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but thank you, I'm glad you were here.
Yeah, I was glad he was here, too.
Discussion. Special town meeting warrant articles, and what's the Bruins score, 0-0?
0-0, so they took a goal away for goaltender interference. So I heard.
All right. So, we acted a lot on the, I didn't bring my thing with me, so what do we only have a couple articles that we really wanted to talk about, is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct.
right.
Articles 10 and 11, which are on the special, those are the requests to put funds into the stabilization account, as well as to put funds into the OPEB trust fund. And the recommendation that we have given to the Finance Committee that they have approved or will be recommending is to transfer funds from free cash and from a former warrant article for the HVAC upgrades in this building and in the library, which we don't need because of a Green Communities grant. A total of about $436,000 into the stabilization account. And the motion...
Would that be 386 plus 40?
Correct.
So it'll be 426.
Very good, Mr. Chairman, exactly.
Okay, and that would be, that would bring us up to approximately how much in the stabilization
That
fund,
would
do
be
you know?
approximately 1.8 million, 1.8, 1.9.
Which is the rainy day fund, perfect, excellent. That's part of our policy where a certain percentage of free cash goes into stabilization, a certain percentage goes into capital plan, and a smaller percentage goes into OPEB, which is the after employment,
Other post-employment
the
benefits.
post-employment benefits, which is a big nut. Anyway, so, is everybody okay with those numbers? The Finance Committee seems to be okay with those numbers, and the town manager's budget, those numbers are included, so do we have any action on Article 10? We've just been kind of recommending approval, you know?
What was the discussion at the last meeting that they?
We didn't have a number.
Yeah, there was no
numbers.
specific
Oh, okay.
number. Yeah,
Oh,
we've
we
been-
ran for the
right, we've been
finance
working
committee.
around general target during the budget process, and we've come to the point where we can actually put exact dollars to it now.
Then I'll make a motion, the Board of Selectmen vote to approve, recommend to approve Article 10.
Right, with the funding listed, okay? We have a motion, do I have a second? On Article 10 of the special town meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on Article 10? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous vote, Article 10. Article 11, the same thing, certified free cash to OPEB, other post-employment benefits, trust fund. Transfer the sum of $80,000 from free cash. Rick, do you want to speak on that at all, or it's just a drop in the bucket in reality, but...
Yeah, I mean, we're not Lincoln that has fully funded their post-employment benefits, so we're trying to just, part of it is, well, there's two parts. Number one, you want to fund as much as you can, and second of all, we've got, when you go out for a bond issue or anything, those types of investments, it's good to show some commitment to these long-term liabilities.
How's that number compared to years past, that 80,000 number?
It's probably been about 3 years since we've actually put money into this account. We put money in stabilization a couple of years ago, but we haven't,
Well, I know a
it's been-
neighboring
it's
town
been a
that has
while.
$1 in their account, so.
I'm sorry? Say that
I
again?
know a neighboring town that has $1 in their OPEB account.
Oh.
So, we're doing
A
better
little
than that.
better, yeah, a little better, yeah.
It's good. I'll make a motion that the Board of Selectmen recommend the passage of Article 11 with the numbers the Finance Committee provided.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous vote. It's not listed here, but Article 12, I don't think we voted on Article 12, did we?
I think you did, but I know it's changed quite a bit in the
Okay.
last,
Article
recently.
12 is to see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds the sum of $40,000 for the town's portion of the dog park project or take any other action relative thereto. The dog park committee met before this meeting at 3 o'clock. I was unable to attend. I just want to explain a little bit about Article 12 and what they're recommending before the board votes on it.
Actually, they're,
Yes.
were you gonna say
Yep,
that?
yep. Just a little background. I just want to explain this article because I don't want people to think that it was something that was just thrown out there to try to raise people's taxes. So, just a little background on why the article was added. There was 6 bids. The winning bid came in at $209,000, and correct me if I'm wrong in any of my numbers. This amount was a little more than the committee had anticipated throughout our design and estimate process, which has been a couple years. It's actually quite a bit more than we had anticipated. The Stanton Foundation, which was going to and has given Abington a grant for this project, had very specific timeframes as to when the bidding had to be completed. By April, when the project had to be started, spring 2019, and when the project has to be completed, fall of this year. Generally, after a municipality opens bids and they come in higher than expected, the municipality has the right to throw out all the bids and rebid it, either with the same requirements or possibly a scaled-down version. Because of the time constraints by the Stanton Foundation, in order to receive the Stanton grant and risk losing it, the town manager and the dog park committee felt that it would be best to accept the lowest bid and work to close the funding gap. It is important to note that the Stanton Foundation grant pays for 90%, and everybody probably already knows this, but I just want to reiterate it, pays for 90% of the cost of the construction of the dog park, as long as the community does three things: provides a location, water to the site, and the final 10% of the project costs. Rather than coming to the town for the last 10%, a group of dedicated volunteers back in 2017 formed the Abington Dog Park Facebook group. Led by Sue McHugh and Lawrence Sweeney, they made it to the goal to raise the town's 10% share. These people have worked hard in employing every fundraising strategy known to man. They have raised from the community over $19,000, which was well over their goal of $17,000, which we anticipated the dog park project to be $170,000. Where was I? When the bids were open, we quickly came to the realization that since the project cost went up, so did the town's 10% share. So this dedicated committee has set another goal to raise $4,000 more, which would leave the town with a cushion if there were some minor cost overruns. This article was added to the warrant right after opening the bids as an assurance to the Stanton Foundation that Abington would have sufficient funds to complete the project if needed. When the Stanton Foundation saw this article, they were satisfied that there were funding mechanisms in place on the town's end. They promptly wrote the town a check in the amount of $188,986, and the project was able to start, which it did last week. I know that Tim and I went to the groundbreaking. This amount received was actually $16,000 more than the committee expected or even applied for. So because of this unanticipated extra funds received from the Stanton Foundation and the very successful fundraising that has taken place and is still continuing, the Dog Park Committee is confident the dog park will no longer need a safety net, so we will be withdrawing this article on the town meeting floor. Where was I? Also, would be remiss to note that along with the $190,000 check we received, the town is also now approved to receive 5% of the project cost for upkeep and repairs in 3 out of the first 5 years that it is open. So that's an additional $28,000 in Stanton Foundation funds coming to the town in the first 5 years dedicated to the dog park. And with that, I just want to remind everyone the Dog Park Facebook Committee is still raising funds. They're looking for donations. I had a piece of paper that I was supposed to read about it, but I, of course, do not have it here. I lost it, but suffice it to say, at Abington Celebrates Weekend, they are going to be, they're still selling memorial bricks, which are going to look nice there, and they are having at least 1 or 2 fundraisers on Abington Celebrates Weekend, so please contribute to them, visit the Facebook page and contribute. We are so close, we don't want to let this this very generous gift and the hard work of the volunteers go to waste. So that article will be withdrawn. If we can withdraw it before it goes to print, or we just get by town
It's already
meeting?
been posted, so it'd just be basically a motion to pass over the article.
At town meeting,
Yes.
okay. So, yes, sir, come on up.
Stephen Rossetto, 129 Priscilla Alden Road,
Trustee.
Abington. About the dog park, so that means no taxes will be coming out of us, right? Out of the residents.
Correct, that was the
Even after when it's done, we're still not gonna pay anything, right?
I would think that after, there would be some cost for the, I think the
After-
DPW is probably
after
going to take
5
over
years,
cleaning it up,
3
but
years, yes.
there will be some cost there. But
Right.
as
No,
far
I
as-
mean, because they just did my streets over.
Sure.
They paved and everything. The sidewalk's like a roller coaster because, and I got nothing against the DPW. They're fantastic guys. They work hard. They're not pavers. They don't do paving.
Okay.
Just about every driveway, there's puddles after it rains. They turn the sheet of ice. My wife's handicapped, so I worry about her. She doesn't really walk too much on the sidewalks, but, my sidewalk is like, there's this much dirt to cut my grass,
Sure.
and the sidewalk is very uneven. So my question was, not to get off subject, are they gonna do another layer on the sidewalks? Because they only did like a little thin layer.
We actually, I think we asked for the DPW guy to come into a meeting soon.
We were gonna wait till after town meeting when he had his.
And he was going to give us.
I was just curious,
He was
you
going
know.
to give us the rundown of what streets are going to be done, this year, and
Yeah,
what's the
basically a full
timeframe.
update, so it'd be probably better off talking to him.
Okay, yeah, because they
He's-
hired the main general contractor to do the main streets. And then the town workers did all the sidewalks and the curbing.
Have you called the DPW?
I haven't called them. I usually see them around, try to talk to them.
Give John Stone a call, please. He's
and I'll ask them.
Very
Okay,
good.
that's
And then-
why I come up was
and
to
then-
talk to
then if
somebody,
there's a-
just haven't
then
had
if there's an
time.
issue, let us know, because we
Yeah.
will.
No, I don't think, they're
And,
phenomenal.
And
They really
I'm
are.
not, I don't want to be sarcastic here, but a lot of people in town don't have sidewalks, and that's part of, we enlisted in the Smart Streets grant, so we're going to try to get more sidewalks in town, and obviously, we need to repair some of the ones we have, so.
Yeah, no, it is what it is. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate
And
that.
just as a technical point, this article was going to be funded from a transfer from other funds that are available the end of the fiscal year, so it wasn't going to take away from any funding for the next year's spending plan. So it wasn't going to raise taxes or have an impact on the taxpayers at all.
No, it was got to spend money
Right.
that people paid in taxes this year.
Well, fair enough,
Still,
yes, but they've already paid.
Right.
Sorry.
They wouldn't be raising new taxes, but
Yeah, and I was just gonna mention to you before, according to the minutes, we didn't act on that.
we didn't act on that.
We didn't act on
All
Article
right.
12. Do you wanna
You wanna make it-
accept a motion? I'll make a motion that the Board of Selectmen recommends
Pass
passing over Article 12.
We have a motion and a second to pass over Article 12. Anything further to say on that?
I'm sorry.
Sorry, who seconded that, Ken? Thank you.
All in favor of passing over Article 12, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous vote. All right, we have two more articles, I'm sorry, three more articles. Articles 15,
We already
16.
did 21.
Oh, actually, I did 21, that was the cable one, so we have 15 and 16 on the annual town meeting warrant.
And I know there was a question if the treasurer collector could attend, but she's on maternity leave still, so.
Before
That is
you,
no excuse. for
Nah,
maternity leave.
That's what I told her.
before we touch on those
written up.
last two articles, Finance Committee, did they pretty much go with what we recommended? I know that on the plastic bag, they were
They
in
did
favor
not.
of a ban.
That's
They were deadlocked on another article, correct?
deadlocked on the question of subdividing the property and provide, at Center School,
Okay,
and
all right.
allowing that to be sold. They were deadlocked on that, their recommendation.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so Articles 15 and 16. 15 is, these are all treasure collector articles,
Yes,
and we were
these
just a
are
little
We were
confused.
still waiting, we were gonna wait to hear from her.
Yeah.
Do you have any information
Yeah.
further than you had last week?
Well, I mean, Article 1 is really kind of I'm sorry, Article 1.
15.
Article 15 is, I don't want to call it kind of bookkeeping, but you have an inconsistency with the town's old bylaw in state statute. So that's causing an enforcement issue by the collector's office. So the treasurer collector is simply asking to rescind the existing bylaw and simply revert to the state statute with regard to this.
And the Finance Committee recommend approval, so
Yeah,
did they actually get to talk to the,
Yes.
they did,
Yes,
treasurer
did,
collector, and they
yes.
had no problem with it? Okay. So this will revert back to the state statute?
Correct.
Okay. Does anybody want to act on 15, or they want to wait? Do they want to,
I'll actually make a motion that the Board of Selectmen defers to the Finance Committee on this one.
okay? Does anybody want to second that, or do we want to, well, I'll need a second to discuss it further, if you want.
I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion to defer to the Finance Committee on this article. Does anybody want to talk about further on that?
I just made that motion because they got to speak to her, we haven't. I don't fully understand the statute that they're looking, the bylaw that they're looking to.
Right. And just a heads up, we meet before town meeting, so we could always change our vote if we felt, really strongly. I don't think that's going to be any controversy or anything on that, if that motion was to carry, so. So we have a motion and a second to defer to the Finance Committee's recommendation on Article 15. And anything further to be said on that? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's a unanimous vote. Article 16, did you want to do the same thing for that?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we defer to the Finance
I
Committee.
definitely agree with you on that one, so. All right, so we have a motion, and do I have a second on that?
Yes.
I have a motion and a second on the same wording that we defer to the Finance Committee on Article 16. Anything further to be said? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous vote. That takes care of recommendations for all the articles, I
Yes,
believe.
that's correct.
Okay. So we're ready for town meeting, except Jim Conley didn't sign the warrant, but that's all right.
Do you need to sign that, or?
No.
Gone past?
Too late
It's
now.
posted now. We
Town
have-
managers report.
Yes, a couple of things, Mr. Chairman. First of all,
I'm not the chairman.
Sorry, Chairman Pro Tem,
All
sorry. Number one, I don't think we need to talk about the dog park at all. I think you're all well up to date, and your statement, Mr. Member, I think was even more elaborate. Number two, the Chestnut Street, Hancock Street intersection, that has been a project, although you wouldn't know it, but this is something that's been in the works with the DPW for a couple of years now in terms of trying to get funding for a study. I think we all know that that's a problematic intersection, and it's some of the difficulty is what people don't necessarily realize, the slope and the sight lines, that's a big problem, because you have private property involved, you have a massive grading issue potentially, so that needs professional study. And what this Mass DOT has agreed that, I think when John was in before, he had made note that the project review had been approved by Mass DOT Division 5. Now it has passed the review of their project committee, so it is eligible for federal highway funding. The overall project cost right now is at least tentatively set at $2.5 million. After the town does its due diligence and hiring a design consultant to provide options, and that'll be paid for from Chapter 90 funds. So it's good news, but don't hold your breath. I mean, these things take a couple of years from.
So it's just moving forward?
Yes, it is.
So it
but
should be done by next week.
more or less, yeah, right after we tear down those buildings, right?
That's right.
None of us will be.
Yeah, but it is, it's significant to the extent that that review committee has decided that it does meet all the requirements.
And I just want you to give a lot of people will say, why don't they do something with that intersection? Can you just repeat that amount one more time?
$2.5 million is the project cost, and that's after there's been an evaluation and recommendations from engineers, consultants.
And the other one has been approved, the funding's been approved for the one at the other end of that street, right? The North Quincy Street?
Yes, that's
So
correct.
that's going to be a roundabout.
That's
And this
correct. That is
looks like it
approved.
may be a roundabout, but we'll determine that.
Correct.
Okay, all right.
And we had them in before, and they gave us the options. This was this was before I was on the board, but they said the lights would back up too much, in their opinion. A four-way stop is too dangerous with the slope of
Exactly.
Hancock Street
Right.
coming down. And that they were recommended the best flow of traffic and the best for the cost would be a roundabout there as well.
Right,
I
again,
don't think that they
to
were.
be determined.
They had some other options too. It's something about putting level on the land a little so it wasn't so steep.
Yeah, they
one of the
pushing
problems.
back, taking land and pushing
And our
back.
chiefs have concerns about, because they know it makes sense if you're not qualified to determine this, and I'm not, but when the police and fire chief tell me how concerned they are about that slope, especially in the winter, you can't, just putting up four-way stop sign, that's going to cause, they're concerned that's going to cause more accidents.
It would.
That's, again, things that people who are not qualified to render an opinion on.
Ourselves
that's one of
included.
them. I'm sorry?
Ourselves
Yeah, well,
included.
again, that's why we pay money to
You can't speak for
consulting
the board,
engineers.
you're not the
The 2020 budget and spending plan, as we've been discussing in piecemeal, has now been completed by the Finance Committee, and fortunately, we've been in sync the entire time, primarily because, I don't miss meetings, and they're pretty good at asking questions, and we get, and yeah, Deb Libby takes the best notes of any, she's in the Hall of Fame, actually, for note-taking. So the good news is we'll, again, on the spending plan, we'll go into town meeting with a consensus, and hopefully that will result in another efficient examination of the warrant. I think some of the issues on the warrant that are going to cause more discussion are financially related.
Kudos to the financial team for that too, because, you don't only have to go look the next town over. Whitman's really in some disarray with their budget issues and stuff like that. So I think they thought they were all, this is great, we're gonna fund the police station out of, and not go for an override or a debt exclusion, and now they're
They're looking at
regretting all this.
$2 million override.
So kudos to the conservative approach and adding some staffing to the DPW in the budget, so very good.
And as I forwarded to the board, we have our first application for a marijuana retail facility. What happens next is the proponent would seek to have negotiate a host community agreement with the town. Presuming you come to an agreement, then they have to go through the planning stage, the planning board site plan review. So it's not over when there's a host community agreement. After that, they also need to be approved by the state, which can also take a while. So, but it's the first, we've had a lot of people inquire. We've had people inquire about, the bylaws, the zoning. But this is the first time we've actually had somebody seriously seek to move down this path, so.
So it's gonna be a little while.
Yes, it is.
You should tell Jim not to start waiting in line now.
I'm with you. I have my medical card.
Rick Collins from the planning board, I think did they come before you? There was discussion tonight on that, wasn't there, or no?
No.
You want to come to the microphone, though, and give us some wisdom?
Yeah.
We know.
Rick Collins, 74 Orange Street. I'm also a member of the planning board. My question was, what is that time frame for the host community agreement? Have they officially applied? Is the clock start ticking? Do you have a certain amount of time to get to an agreement?
No, there's no specific timetable.
Okay.
Other than the fact that, the revenue would be nice. So that's the only timetable. And in fairness to, the applicant, they are prepared to make an investment. So it'd be obviously a courtesy, but in terms of the town's requirement, there isn't a legal requirement for.
Have they officially applied, submitted, whatever the term would be?
Yeah, there isn't a specific application. What they have provided to us does constitute a request to negotiate a host community agreement. As I say, you won't find anywhere a specific application like you would for a license.
Okay. And is the application negotiated through the Board of Selectmen, the town manager acting on their behalf,
Ultimately, the Board of Selectmen has to approve the host community agreement. So the format that we go through, and obviously town council will be involved, they deal with these around the state, and there's still not that many, but host community agreements, there's more or less a model that's been developed. So, how the board chooses to negotiate that, whether it's, a subcommittee with the members of the board and me, whether, the board's gonna have to meet with town council, obviously, in executive session first to understand the best way to negotiate this, and I think out of that will come a decision on the best way to move forward.
Okay.
It'd be premature
Could we,
to tell you that.
we're not going to violate anything if we send the information that we have, the request to the planning board if they haven't already?
Well, they haven't. I think it's premature for them to go to the planning board without knowing,
No, but
but
could
I'm
we-
happy to do it.
Yeah, can we get
Happy
the
to do
information that we have, because
Yes.
it's a pretty interesting package that they put
Yeah.
together.
At our meeting this evening, we are looking to set up a time to meet with them informally in the
Okay.
next
Fair enough.
week or two to take a look at what they're proposing.
So they've been sneaking around behind the board's back, is that what
Exactly.
you're telling me? Okay.
Exactly.
Would that be something that we could be invited to, or we just want to do it at the planning board?
I would defer to the town manager talking through Liz Shade just to figure out where things stand. It's not a formal
Right.
hearing at this point. I think it was just more, this is what we're looking to do and get initial thoughts. And everyone's kind of tiptoeing lightly through it. This evening, we started to put together essentially what the application would look like, just how many copies of what, that sort of thing, because we're new to this as well, and there's not many towns in the South Shore who have gone through this, so it's a little bit more difficult to.
Right.
And the town council is
Copy.
at your access if you need it.
I'm sorry?
Town council would be at their,
If they request, I think,
Yeah.
to the extent that it's not a formal legal proceeding, that would really be, I think, if the request is there. Actually, that's where the real work is, in terms of the host community agreement piece. Again, that's, I think, to some extent boilerplate, especially, once, to the extent that the town gets all the financial benefits that it can under statute. But ultimately, you know, the location would be zoned appropriately. When you get into issues of, you know, traffic, public safety, there are various options. I think those of you who have read that they have, that they've done in other places. But, you know, the planning piece of it is before the planning board, and I think that's where the real work is.
Yeah, so just to,
Congratulations.
just to update the board, when it comes before the planning board, it's treated basically like any site plan review. It's location, building dimensions, parking, and then there's also some of the more unique aspects like security plans, emergency response plans. There are restrictions on how the building can look, what can be advertised. You know, it's not going to look like Trukey's with the giant windows filled with the daily specials. You can't have that sort of stuff. But I think some of the facilities that we're seeing also, it's not just a concrete bunker-style building. They're fairly nice buildings. So, but on our end, we treat it just like any other site plan review. And we approved the bylaws last year to guide that in our zones, so that's what we're looking.
I do envision, knowing where the location's gonna be, I envision some parking concerns, but.
I think one of the proposals that they have is, you know, by appointment.
Yeah.
So, again, Jim will book those for you.
Where are they proposing to do this? I haven't even seen that much.
Are we allowed to say?
I don't see why not. It's up,
It's, the building,
sign
if you're
company.
looking at Sorrell's, the building to the right of it, used to be a gift.
Oh, the old house?
The old
The residential house?
The sign.
Yeah, but it used to be, it's a sign-making building
Sign
now.
place,
Correct,
It used to
yes.
be a gift shop.
Right.
Okay.
Obviously, there'll be some renovation.
In the packet they provided, which,
I used to live there.
Oh, interesting.
You get that packet?
in the packages they provided, we'll forward to you, it shows pictures, and it does address some of the security concerns and the agreement with the town, 3 and 3, so.
Once you have that date, obviously, we'll make sure the board's aware for those who wish to attend.
Obviously, just I think communication's key, so
Yeah.
the more that we can talk back and forth, probably the better outcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Two other just quick
Two
things.
other things, yes.
I'm sorry.
That's
Again,
all right.
these are from the police department. The police department will be joining the Kraft Family Blood Donor Center, Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, and the Brigham and Women's Hospital to host a blood drive at the Abington Police Station on this Saturday between 8 and 2 p.m. And the other thing is that the police are in the beginning stages of partnering with retired NHL player, Whalers and Capitals, Dave Jensen, and the Boston Bruins alumni for an anti-bullying street hockey clinic. Now, I don't know about you, but hockey's not the same since they haven't been bullying people, but. So they'll be running this event in conjunction with the Founder's Day Fishing Derby, held by former Selectman Manning. So that's-
Another event for Abington Celebrates, so
Yeah,
that's excellent.
exactly,
Okay.
so. Oh, apparently, no one's.
They've done it every year.
Yeah.
For Abington Celebrates.
Yeah, but they stopped.
The police stopped and someone else took it over.
Yeah.
So,
It was a good time.
It still is. They, right at the front of the Island Grove, not, before, I think they did it in the back, or maybe all around, at the highway.
DPW and everything.
Right, this is just right in front of the DPW at the fence there on that Saturday?
Saturday, June 8th.
Saturday, June 8th, yeah.
and that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Right, I would like to, I think we discussed amongst ourselves about having a meeting next week for executive session. The main purpose, there may be other reasons, but the main purpose is, generally, town council will update the board, and especially in this case, new members, on pending litigation involving the town. There's a lot of things going on in the town every year, stuff that we don't know about, so, and we might add something, but unless somebody has an objection, it will probably just be an executive session meeting. Is that all right?
No problem.
And I think we talked, Monday night was not good, but Tuesday night, is that all right with
Open night? Yeah, that's fine.
Tuesday night, yes.
Tuesday night? Kevin, that good?
Yes.
All right, so Tuesday night, executive session. Would you-
Tuesday the 14th?
Yeah, 6:30 or
6:30 is fine with me.
6:30, could you post that, please?
Yes.
And then we'll get you an agenda. When is the vice chairman coming back, do we know?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow, okay. And I would like to, on our next meeting, which I guess will probably be 2 weeks from tonight.
22nd.
I would like on the agenda,
That's town meeting. by the
yes,
way.
before that, I would like on the agenda, discussion about going out to bid for legal services. It's been quite a while, before my time on the board, and we've done it before, we've gone out to get bids. You know, we might, find someone that's cheaper than Copeland and Page. Also, the advantage is that Copeland and Page might lower their bids. They do have a lot of towns, but in the past, you can look no further than two gentlemen on the wall. They were town council, and they were local, so it doesn't have to be Copeland and Page, or KP Law, I'm sorry, what they call themselves now.
If we're all here on the 14th, could we do the reorg before we go into executive session?
I was just gonna ask about
That way
that.
we get
That's a
it
good
done.
idea, that's an
Can we do
excellent idea.
open session Tuesday night, take care of that, and take care of reorganization of the board? Or do you wanna wait 2 weeks?
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine if we want.
Yeah, if we're gonna be in open session anyway to reorganize, we can do open
We
session,
can discuss the
discuss
possibility. Okay,
that, and then go
all
in.
right,
Okay.
cool, excellent. Anything else before we enter into executive session? Anybody wants to talk about? Okay. I will entertain a motion to enter executive session to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining with the DPW union and the managers union pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, and not to return to open session. This is a roll call vote, so we're going to start down the end. Kevin?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, it's a unanimous vote, so thank you for coming tonight. Thank you.